welcome back to another Questions and Answers here on Our Walk in Christ. You can ask your own question at ourwalkinchrist.com/question. And today we're going to ask this question: is it permissible for me as a Christian to watch any form of entertainment, engage in any form of media? Now, the reason I wanted to address this one is because I have just released my new book, and this one is out available. It's called I Am Not Amused. And this book covers that very issue, and it looks at a very balanced perspective of media entertainment. This is on sale on ourwalkinchrist.com. You can get it pretty much anywhere else you buy books as well. But that is kind of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to look at 3 specific verses. What does the Bible say? Now, this book goes through just every painful, grueling detail about this issue, but we're going to look at the 2 guide rails that we have, legalism and antinomianism, in a brief answer to this question that we're going to try and do in 5 minutes or less. So the first verse we want to examine is in Psalm 101 at verse 3. And Psalm 101 verse 3 is David speaking, and he says, "I will set no worthless thing before my eyes." Okay, so I will set no worthless things before my eyes. That is that number one point that we have to consider. That if something is completely worthless, if something is just absolutely wickedly vile, there's no reason to put it in front of your head. And now, analyzing it, examining it, making the determination is one thing, but secretly enjoying it, that's another. And so we kind of use that as sort of our framework. But then we dive into the Christian perspective of, on the one hand, legalism, on the other hand, antinomianism. So looking at these 2 words, of course, legalism isn't just doing a lot of good and righteous holy things. That's a misconception. Legalism is when you place the emphasis on the law above the emphasis on the heart. And that's really what's important. And so we want to start actually looking at 1 Corinthians 6. Now this phrase comes up 2 times in 1 Corinthians. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 6:12, and it says, "All things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by any." So in other words, on this one hand, Paul is coming in and saying, hey, outside of the scope of these really moral issues, really nothing super unlawful. I can go in and engage in a lot of things. I can engage in the world. Now, this is an important perspective to take from the Christian, because if all you're doing is isolating yourself from everything that even has a potential hint of evil, you can't possibly reach the world. And that is the entire context of this chapter in the book of 1 Corinthians, is going out and interacting with the world. He says in there, in fact, earlier in the book, he talks about how he says, hey, I said not to associate with people. He said, I didn't mean people of the world. I meant with believers who were not really obeying Christ's command. Okay, because if you're going to dissociate yourself from the world, he says, who's there to save? That's in there in 1 Corinthians. I think it's chapter 5. But on the one hand, there's no clear-cut rules that says thou shalt not watch an R-rated movie. Okay? But then on the other hand, you have to look at the opposite end of the spectrum. At what point do you go too far? And this is verses found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. And it says, "Examine everything carefully, hold fast to that which is good, and abstain from every form of evil." So in other words, you want to examine the types of things that you find in the world. Get out there, examine all of the things, and then with that examined, then you go back, you look at what it is and say, is this evil? And I talk about a lot of different movies, a lot of different books, a lot of different resources. The one most coming to my head right now, I saw it as a teenager because, I was an ungodly teenager. Natural Born Killers comes out. We go and watch it. The entire film is just people shooting people for the capricious act of killing people. It finally ended in a message that crime, in theory, could pay. There's nothing righteous, there's nothing holy, there's nothing good, there's nothing worth dwelling on in that film. So examine everything carefully. If it's good, hold fast to it. If it's not good, cast it aside. So that's something that you would want to cast aside. Some things are not quite as clear cut. That's just one that came to my mind. So keep in that perspective. On the one hand, we don't have strict requirements as to what we watch. So if you love a secular band, hey, that's fine. There's no big deal. But on the other spectrum, if that secular band is full of hate and it's full of anger and it's full of sin and full of glorifying evil, that's a problem. So we have to float between these two things. Examine everything carefully. Hold fast which is good. Abstain from every evil thing. There is some degree of lawfulness in most things. And set nothing evil before your mind. So that's what I want to say on this brief questions and answers regarding media entertainment. Once again, you can pick up a copy of this book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, many other places. It is for sale on Our Walk in Christ. If you'd like a signed copy, ourwalkinchrist.com. You'll find all the information to get it over there. I do ship only to the United States from that website. If you are international, you can get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and numerous other places where you can buy books. So have a look at that if you are interested, and ask your own question at ourwalkinchrist.com/question.